If you come to this video after my recap, please don't forget to rest because that video was an hour long of me recapping the storyline. But if you treat my last video like a podcast, then I suppose my purpose being your company is still fulfilled, so thank you for that. And if you click this video because of the bizarre thumbnail, well... Nah, just kidding. I swear, I have a good reason why I made that thumbnail. Albeit, because that thumbnail by itself is an extreme copium and can be said to be a fanfiction. We'll talk about that at the end of the video as the closing theory. In today's video, we'll talk about all the theories based on what we know so far from 5.1 Arcane Quest, and also the interlude chapter that we just received. The interlude quest is quite short, but there are some interesting lore tidbits. Perhaps one of them is a lot more lore bomby than we might have thought. So, I'll do a recap, then we can get to the theory section. As always, disclaimer, all of this video will be theories based on what we know so far. It's also worth noting if I mention anything that is related to real life history, they're simply references and don't represent the actual in-game product. Theories are meant to be speculative, so don't take them seriously and take them with a huge grain of salt. Secondly, this is a leak-free zone. Please don't comment anything related to leak content. Not only they're not confirmed, but I also would personally refrain myself from using leaks for my lore recap and theory crafting. Don't forget to give this video a like and comment so the channel can be noticed by the algorithm. I'm juggling my time doing my final year project, being an artist and video editing, so a little bit of boost will help this channel a lot, and that lets me know that I'm doing a good job. My name is Neko Gitsune and I make lore and commentary videos on this channel to keep you company. The quest starts with the Traveler and Paimon visiting the Flowerfeather clan, meeting with Yansan and her students from Collective of Plenty. It's so weird seeing it like this because Yansan looks more like their little sister that they're trying to protect, but instead it's the other way around. Yansan tells the Traveler and Paimon about some strange things that are currently happening in the Flowerfeather clan, and asks us to help her to meet the Flowerfeather clan chief. This is where the interlude act of Natlan's Arcane Quest officially starts. All fires fuel the flame. We meet with Mutota, who is actually designed pretty nicely and could have been a playable character instead. Also, that hair reminds me of Alhaitham's hair color. And he tells us about 3 Flowerfeather clan citizens that are currently mentally unstable. Or perhaps the game described them in a more straightforward way. Damn, I shouldn't have laughed, but the mentally ill meme is so funny that I can't help myself. Everyone, for some reason, hallucinated. Akolto thinks he has drowned, Chokita thinks everyone has died and eaten by monsters of the abyss, while Okotlan thinks that everyone has died and he is still fighting monsters. In short, these people think the war is not yet over. According to Mutota, they found these guys unconscious near the abyssal tumors next to their fallen comrades. Mutota then tells everyone the huge thing we fought in the last Arcane Quest. We learn its name is Kosoithoth, which is quite aligned with the name of the abyssal tumor, and is titled as the Reaper of the Abyss. Perhaps this monster is the source of the found survivors' hallucination. Despite using the Traveler's ability to purify them, it doesn't seem to work either. In order to solve everyone's case, Yansan suggested solving the case by letting the affected survivors go wherever they feel comfortable. Once they do, the Traveler and Yansan can start solving each victim's case one by one. Just like that, we solve everyone's case. We help Akolto from his drowning hallucination by using the Traveler's ability to transform into Sarian and play as Akolto's dead Sarian from 4 years ago, and we help Chokita's traumatic experience by letting her fight abyssal monsters nearby the tribe to let her prove herself she has to fight despite her buried fears. The moment we do just that, both Akolto and Chokita were free from their hallucination, and they didn't remember what just happened, so the Traveler and Yansan explained the situation. I have to be real with you all, despite only solving their problems, looking at them in such fear is very heartbreaking to watch because what these victims are experiencing right now is something that really happened in real life as well, and that is trauma, or one would say, a PTSD. Of course, the game only shows it in a more blanketed allegorical storytelling, but it really shows you how war can really affect someone to such a degree. The final victim we have to help is Okotlan, and unfortunately, no one can think of any solution because of how destructive Okotlan's behavior is. The only way we can help him for now is to immobilize him. In such time, Capitano comes to the rescue and reveals what Ocotlan and everyone else are currently experiencing, called the Abyssal Corrosion Syndrome, a disease that has resurfaced again after 500 years. According to him, high exposure to abyssal energy can cause mental trauma, and depending on the trauma level, it can start from superficial hallucination, where any outside variable can help break the hallucination, like what we did with Oculto and Chiquita. But there's also some that can be as bad as Ocotlan. Since he is a devoted warrior, it's even harder to get him away from the hallucinations, and only medical intervention can help. In this case, Capitano has the medicine called the Drought of Lucidity, but with the cost of chromatic migraines for the rest of the victim's life once they consume it. Ocotlan's father gave the approval to give the medicine anyway to Ocotlan. As the father thanked Capitano and asked his name, I was honestly pissed because Capitano cut himself from saying his real name. But in the Korean voiceover, he said something on the lines of Thra, T-H-R-A. I could have sworn I read somewhere with that name, but let's just skip the possibility for now. The moment the crowd dispersed, he revealed how much he loved Natlan. The moment he fled from Khaenri'ah, it just so happens that Natlan was facing the same enemy and had decided to aid them fighting against the Abyss along with his other comrades. The reason he did not tell his name to Ocotlan's father was because he felt he failed to protect his nation. Which I kinda agree with Paimon that he shouldn't have felt that way because the Abyss is too strong from the start. As for the Drought of Lucidity, Capitano revealed that medicine was created by the military doctor from his time by the name of Guthred, the person who took over Auron's body back in the source mechanism ruins. Capitano complimented the Traveler King's perception, but wants him to keep the conversation about Guthred a secret because it's a personal matter to him. Hear that, Paimon? It's a private matter. Stop butting on someone else's business. He eventually reveals, despite the current victory they just achieved, the souls in Natlan are not yet in peace. He then gives us time to ask questions, and while we don't have options to choose this time around, we do have something that might pique your interest. The Traveler remembered Citlali's vision regarding to Mavuika's death, and this is the only opportunity for the Traveler to ask Capitano this important question: the identity of the Ruler of Death. All we know about for now is that Khaenri'ahns were cursed by the curse of immortality by the heavenly principles. But what we just now know is that Renova was the shade responsible for the Khaenri'ahns' curse. Capitano also uses an interesting allegory in his statement. In the garden cultivated by the gods, flowers and weeds grow side by side. When the weeds compete for nutrients in the soil, the gardener intervenes to inhibit their growth. I have my personal theory in this statement, so we'll talk about this in a bit. Small hint, we'll be talking about this huge lore bomb in this wing as well. Being the concept of death and the rule itself, Renova can determine who gets to live, define the form of death, and even grant immortality to whoever she sees fit. Capitano even opened his mask to show the Traveler and Paimon just how terrifying his face looks right now, and to that I say, Mihoyo, you cowards. Give me my Deadpool looking Giga Chat! Even so, Capitano believes that no destiny can be unchanged, no death inevitable, and no rule unbreakable. With that said, Yansan approaches us to meet Shilonen and the others at the stadium in order to create the Traveler's ancient name. We say our farewell to Capitano and approach the stadium for everyone to tell about what they think about the Traveler. Apparently, this is an important part to forge the ancient name for the Traveler, but the Traveler is not allowed to hear what they say in order to keep their opinion as honest as possible. After that's done, Shilonen tells the Traveler to explore Natlan until the time comes in order to record more of his adventures and deeds in Natlan. This is where the interlude chapter of Natlan's Sarkhan quest officially ends. Now, let's get into some theory crafting. If we combine what Capitano said to us in the Sarkhan quest and what we learned from 5.1 Archon quest, this could imply that Renova is the final foe that Capitano needs to fight. Whether it's out of revenge or out of heart to his plans, Capitano seems to have deep hatred towards Renova for giving him and Khaenri'ahns the curse of immortality. Now, I have to say, I don't think Renova is fully responsible for granting this curse in the first place. In fact, I think there's two of them. One is Renova and the other could be the shining shade of life, the one who is responsible for the curse of wilderness, or as you may know it in a common term, the Hilichurl curse. In Fontaine, we get to see how life acts in general. Fontainians were originally Oceanids, and Nigeria was created by the shining shade of life according to Fontaine's reputation wings. Of course, I could be wrong, because Renova is the embodiment of rule and she can always define death in many ways. The way Capitano showed his face to the Traveler and Paimon could be the proof that the curse of immortality is just another way of death, or one would say, a form of suffering that is worse than death. Speaking of Capitano though, I also want to talk about the allegory he mentioned. I actually want to mention Minsleaf's video as well talking about this allegory, which the way I perceive it is basically the same as hers. Flowers could mean the chosen people. Weeds are not the chosen one, which could assume be the people not under the seven, and the gardener is the heavenly principles. When the weeds are competing against the flowers, the gardener intervenes to stop the process so the flower continue to grow. In Inazuma, we witness A lose all of her friends because of progress, and her solution is to put Inazuma in a state of eternity, aka what we witness in Inazuma Archon Quest. This led many people to believe that progress is the main reason why the Heavenly Principles target Khaenri'ah specifically. But I want to add something, and that is related to this Xbox wing that we'll receive in the next version. Or if you already got it, then congratulations, I'm happy for you. Anyway, the summary of this wing is basically how Khaenri'ahns were using the Abyss Sibling as a vessel to absorb unlimited abyssal power, and this is basically the main reason why the Cataclysm occurred in the first place. Ironically enough, Kanatilla, an NPC Melusine from Fontaine, scarily mentions how the Traveler of our choice is a monster that could swallow the whole world in a single bite. Wow, Kanatilla, chill. This makes the Traveler way scarier than he actually is. It's hard to say, but it's safe to assume that the main reason Khaenri'ah was punished in the first place are two reasons. One is of course advancement, and secondly, the siblings. The wing mentions that the Abyss Sibling was assigned as the successor of King Ermin. And can you imagine that King Ermin would assign our sibling and use her body to absorb as much abyssal power as possible, and even become the key to near-world annihilation? No wonder the Heavenly Principles target Khaenri'ah in the first place. Perhaps this is why Pierrot also is not denying how Khaenri'ahns are not completely innocent either, because he could refer to this crazy plan. Now, remember, Abyss is part of Teyvat, so perhaps this power is the reason why our sibling is considered someone part of Teyvat, because she absorbed too much abyssal power despite being someone not from Teyvat. There's just so much things going on with this wing, and because they decide to release this wing in this version, I have a very high suspicion that we'll get our answer in the next Archon Quest. We might even get confirmation about the Traveler's power. This is not the first time something like this happened, because they released the book of Perrin Harry right before Arlecchino's patch, which by the way, she herself is a walking lore bomb. As for Gosoithoth, I have a crack theory regarding this, but I believe just like the old Duvari Narwhal, that thing could also be a pet, or maybe a creation of the five sinners of Khaenri'ah. Just for a small reminder, Old Duvari Narwhal is considered as Sutherlogi's pet, and that thing almost destroyed Fontaine. Sutherlogi is one of the five sinners and also Skirk's master. The Abyss in nature is destructive, and if we take into account how similar these two beings are given how they have the cyan-colored mouth, this could mean that these five sinners of Khaenri'ah could also be connected to Natlan's current predicament. I know that I can always be wrong with this, but it's definitely interesting given Findaughter's creation, the Rift Walls are present in this Archon Quest. Whether they are directly or indirectly responsible, I have a strong suspicion that they perhaps have strong influence against this war. Do you remember that one statement from Barbeloth in Simulanga event back in 4.8? She said that Findaughter's child will soon rise from the dead, and we can safely assume that this child is Durin. But what if I tell you that Barbeloth could potentially revert to someone else? Remember, back in 3.5 event, Alice talks about other Hexencycle witches, and Rye Daughter said out of all the children she had left, Albedo is the only one left, meaning that she has more than one child, perhaps even hundreds of children, aka her creations by using the art of Chemia. In short, Chemia is practiced to create life in Khaenri'ah because of its underground nature with little fauna life, and Chemia is the major factor for the fall of Khaenri'ah during the Cataclysm. So, here's my crack. Do you think that perhaps Xoythoth is also a creation of Rhine-Daughter? Now, I know that sounds silly, but remember, Rhine-Daughter's creation is not only Durin, but also the Rift Wolves, Albedo, and potentially Elenas. All of them, except Albedo, are heavily influenced by the Abyss, so it's not a complete bogus either that Xoythoth could be a creation of Rhine-Daughter as well, and this could be what Barbeloth is referring to. Maybe, just maybe, we'll even face this thing again in the future because it is being brought again by Mutzota and is a huge influence in the 5.2 Archon Quest. Relating to this current Archon Quest, by that I mean the interlude chapter, that's all that I can say for now. So let's get into something that is more connected to the overall Natlan Archon Quest. As you all can already guess by now, Silis are devolved from angels, and it's more than likely that Columbina, or some of you may know her as the Damselette, is one of the only angels that are yet to devolve. Yahual Techuchtin said in the Archon Quest that her creator wants the angels to trust humanity, which this creator could heavily imply the heavenly principles. And I find it quite interesting because in the Archon Quest, it is implied that Yahual Techuchtin herself dislikes them. But anyways, let's just focus on Columbina for now. While I don't necessarily think there's a lot of wild theories I can say about her, I can explain the TLDR origin of angels and how they are devolved in general. This is also solid proof that Columbina is indeed a yet to devolve angel 100%, and there are others among her who are yet to devolve. According to the records of Jueyun, one of the angels married a traveler from afar. Side note, we have no idea who this traveler is. This marriage was witnessed by the Three Moon Sisters by the name of Arya, Sonnet, and Canon. However, the calamity struck after the marriage of this angel. As a punishment, the couple were forced to be separated and have their memories wiped. In the moment of sorrow, this angel withered away and turned into a Sili. So this second calamity is hinted by the Lord to be Nibelung's revenge against the heavenly principles, and more than likely, this traveler from afar is connected with Nibelung since the way Apep told this incident is quite aligned with Flowers of Paradise Lost's circlet lore. If we take a look on how this story follows, this means that not all angels at this moment of time have yet to devolve. Angels before they turn into Silis are highly intelligent, have beautiful figures, and voices. According to Arlequina's voice line regarding Columbina, once you ask her a question, the answer you receive will be entirely unpredictable, if she fit to give a proper answer at all. Regardless, any answer you do receive is surely to be an interesting one. This could highly suggest that Columbina is indeed a smart individual, and perhaps knows everything that we yet to know of that is Teyvat. She has a beautiful figure, which beauty is relative by one's taste. Well, I mean, she is beautiful, don't get me wrong, and she has a beautiful voice. We know she have a beautiful voice because she sings in the Winter Night Lazo. The obvious one, she has angel wings on her head, which should be an obvious answer that Columbina is one of yet to devolved angels. Columbina is not the first in fact, because Yahual Techuchtin is one of the remaining devolved angels, and Nabu Malikata, or also known as the Goddess of Flowers, is also a survivor. If Wolfie's words regarding Nicole of the Hexencycle are an allegory, then it's possible that Nicole is also an angel, because the way Wolfie described Nicole as a wolf who turns into a rabbit who guides people to treasure is very aligned with how angels devolve into Silis. The moment they turn into Silis, they lose their intelligence, body, and voices, and lead people to treasure. Similar to how Nicole guides people who are lost, perhaps she is in the process of devolving because she's also gone mute, but who knows. Regardless, I do believe the moment Columbina is released, or at least introduced to us in-game, we will get a lot of our questions answered by her because angels seems to know a lot of things that we have yet to know of. I personally find angels have an interesting lore because so far, none of the angels even like the heavenly principles, and ironically, the heavenly principles could be the creator of these angels, or at least one of the shades created them. Whatever the heavenly principles are hiding, they probably made a grave mistake that is yet irreversible. Speaking of that though, let's talk about, I think this is something that we all have waited for, the fake sky. I know, we are closer to the copium theory, but let's get into something more related to the canon lore first, okay? So, what is the fake sky? I have created plenty of videos relating to this phenomena back in the past, but for a brief throwback, the fake sky theory was first introduced to us all the way back in 1.1 event, the Unreconciled Stars, where Scaramouche, before he turned into Wanderer, described how the skies were false after experiencing a dream that normal people cannot be awakened during that time. The second time we heard about this theory, and perhaps most of you hear it in the game for the first time, is when the Torah talk about the false sky with Nahida after the 5th act of Sumeru's Archon quest. This theory was so important to the point Nahida gave her gnosis away over something that is yet to be confirmed at that time. Fontaine also hinted this to us in the Book of Esoteric Revelations, Nivelette's trailer, the all-devouring narwhal, and even Liben, who eerily hinted us about the sky last year. Recently, we finally got to see the truth of this theory, and this theory is no longer a theory anymore. The sky is indeed fake. But why? What are the heavenly principles hiding? Unfortunately, my research led me to nothing on what the heavenly principles is trying to hide. Even before doing this research, from my own knowledge, I have no idea what the heavenly principles are trying to hide in the first place. All I know, however, is that heavenly principles are highly hated or perhaps feared by many beings that live in Teyvat, including the Archons themselves, and Focalors is the biggest example I can think of. We can say that the heavenly principles are quite similar to Otskan, who seems to be tyrannical but in a more unhinged way. The Archon War started because the heavenly principles are the one who started the gods to fight for the divine throne. Oddly enough, the Gnosis are the remains of the third descender, which is theorized to be Nibelung, who came back with the power outside of Teyvat. The fact that the Archons gave them away so willingly to the Fatui could imply that they know what the Gnosis actually is, especially Fancy and Zhongli, who didn't even try to fight back. Of course, I could highly be wrong about my last statement, but the thing is, we can all agree that the heavenly principles is not a good figure, or at least what we know of so far. In fact, they even have their own laws and they can be said to be equally terrifying. You can see what the laws are in the screen, but the way they send the celestial nails is also strange because they're doing it to prevent abyssal influence to spread across Teyvat, yet their answer is to send celestial nails and destroy the environment surrounding it. Perhaps one thing that is mostly hidden by modern people nowadays is that Teyvat was once ruled by dragons. But there are plenty of NPCs that already knew of this to some extent, so it's not even a secret anymore, and most Natlanis already knew about this history. Another is the secret of the Hilichos, where the heavenly principles, specifically Renova or the Shining Shade of Life, curse the non-pure-blooded Khaenri'ans as Hilichos while the pure-blooded one with the curse of immortality. But then, we are hinted again according to Perrin Harry, once the Khaenri'an tries to leave their nation, they will be cursed by the curse of immortality, or turned into a Hilichurl depending on their blood, which could heavily imply that the curse already exists from the very beginning, even before the Cataclysm. You can let me know in the comments if I missed out anything, but for now, let's focus on the sky. From my last video's thumbnail, I said that this could likely be a corpse. This corpse could be one of the Moon Sisters because in the story, the sisters were destined to fight against each other. Two of them died and one of the corpses illuminated the sky, and this is aligned with what we saw, a broken moon, and terrifyingly, it is outside of Teyvat's firmament. I have high suspicion that there's more things than just one of the sisters' corpse, and in fact, there might be more terrifying things that we are not meant to see or perhaps being hidden by the heavenly principles. Speaking of that though, the way the false sky being portrayed here are cubes, which could likely be one thing. The unknown god could more than likely be a shining shade, or more specifically, the shining shade of void, space, or by the artifact's name, Unithem. Let me explain. It's quite obvious now that the unknown god has the power to manipulate space, especially since they took our siblings, trapped them into cubes, and made them smaller, which is highly related to the power of space. Considering the Shining Shades helped the Heavenly Principles to create humanity and fought alongside them during the war against the Sovereigns, it is more than likely that the unknown god creates the firmament of Teyvat, and being the sustainer of the Heavenly Principles, this meant that they are one of the only Shining Shade that is still loyal to the Heavenly Principles herself. However, this happened 500 years ago. Whether that still stands until this day or not, that is something yet to be answered, because right now, Istaroth and Ronova are the only Shining Shade that show their dislike to the Heavenly Principles. Istaroth helped Makoto in order to free the shackles of the Heavenly Principles for Inazuma. As for Ronova, well, what we are experiencing right now in the Archon Quest. Whatever happened back then must have made the beings of Teyvat realize that the Heavenly Principles created grave mistake to the point a lot of them want to rebel against them. I find it fascinating too how the Shining Shade of Unithem did not even bother to approach Natlan, because first of all, she is the sustainer of the Heavenly Principles, and sustainer is synonymous to supporter, upholder, or the closest one for this context, the maintainer. All these years, no one has ever found the skies of Teyvat are fake, and it's only rumors. The only person who clearly knew about this is Alice, and presumably the other Hex and Zilkon members as well, because she did mention the borders of Teyvat have grown weak for the past few years according to the KFC Wing Glider. F*** you Hoyo for making an important lore a part of a limited item, but sure, get the bag I suppose. But Alice is a special case, because she did say it herself in Wondrous Miscellany that her job lets her remember everything's irreversible change, and she can freely travel outside of Teyvat for herself, along with Octavia, who is hinted in The Little Witch and the Undying Fire. Remember, the Heavenly Principles and their Shining Shade created a new life in Teyvat together, so if the Shining Shade wants to sustain the Heavenly Principles, they of course have to sustain Teyvat itself. The fact that the unknown god did not react immediately is very suspicious, and this definitely suggests that she is in fact the Shining Shade of Unithem, or what Yahual de Juhti might say, the ruler of space. Now, let's have some fun. I want to put a huge disclaimer that this is a highly copium theory, so take it with an extra huge grain of salt, because this is borderline fanfiction at this point. But we are here to have fun, so let's do it and be delusional together. I'm dragging all of you with me, so get ready. My knowledge of the Honkai series lore is quite limited except Honkai Star Rail, so feel free to correct me in the comments. With that said, is Teyvat part of Honkai Star Rail solar system? Now, the most logical answer to this is a big and obvious no, it is not. There are, however, connections between Genshin Impact and the Honkai series, being that Genshin Impact does exist as a part of the Imaginary Tree, a concept introduced to us in Honkai Impact 3rd and has become a concept to Hoyoverse games today. I'm only taking this definition based on what we know in the English translation, so take that with a grain of salt. The playable games that currently exist in the Imaginary Tree are of course the Honkai series, Genshin Impact, Zenless Zone Zero, and oddly enough, Tears of Themis. I find it so funny how other universes are trying to defend themselves from monsters and calamity, yet we have Tears of Themis, who the main character has a polygamy relationship with the hot boys. Now I know that sounds crazy, but the thing is, Pella's phone case is the 4 boys of Tears of Themis, so they do exist in the Imaginary Tree at some point. I don't know why that's the case, ask Hoyoverse, not me. Anyways, that's irrelevant. Now, a lot of people pointed out how similar one of the Moon Sisters' alleged corpse is to the login screen of Honkai Star Rail, but the thing is, that's not really the main reason why I said my theory. Of course, it is a contributing factor, but the main reason is this drink. Yes, a drink. I know, it sounds stupid because this drink exists in Penacony and was created by a random bartender in a web event. However, this drink states something very interesting. It is basically a story retelling of a second story quest. Everything stated in this drink is perfect retelling of our experience when we witness a plant the sacred Sakura. The only difference is that the drink doesn't mention A's name, obviously, but it did mention Makoto's demon name. that being Baal, and they mention Teyvat's name in backwards, Taviet. So, according to this string's description, the IPC found the ancient planet, and this planet was long forgotten. The planet exists even before some aeons came to be born. In order to celebrate this discovery, the IPC decided to make a drink inspired by the story of Taviet's legend and named the drink as Baal Royale. There's even more evidence that Teyvat does exist in Honkai Star Rail solar system, or universe if you want to say, being the first glider placed in Herta space station as a curio near the area where we were awakened for the first time. Now oddly enough, we do hear Herta's puppet idol tune at Marjorie's store in Mondstadt. Now I know this tune can be heard almost anywhere, including Angela's idol animation from Mobile Legends and all, but let's just do this for the sake of drama, okay? Shush! Now, if we follow this story, this could mean that the IPC found an ancient text from presumably Inazuma. Teyvat always have this tendency to tell stories in words that can be said, quite primitive. So there's a high chance that the IPC misread Teyvat as Taviet, or the records found by the IPC were damaged in some way, or perhaps written in backwards. The fact that the travelers have traveled from world to world with their sister could possibly mean they have traveled to other planets outside of Teyvat, and yes, Teyvat is confirmed to be a planet by Nivel's character story. This could mean that Genshin's story and the current Honkai Star Rail story is a huge time skip, and perhaps the traveler is still alive in the current Honkai Star Rail timeline, because we do see them interact with Robin's song in her trailer. I actually thought Wei's theory regarding the traveler being a Kivil is so ridiculous, but now that the fake sky is exposed, it's so funny that it somehow made a strange connection. I have a rising suspicion that the Heavenly Principles is hiding everyone from the sky due to perhaps the looming danger outside of it. Remember, the exposed fake sky looks eerily something that aesthetically matches Honkai's aesthetic, that being mechanically modern. Whatever it is clear that the real sky of Teyvat is dangerous, and that danger could be something else that is more dangerous than the Abyss. Could it be Aeons? If so, what Aeon is it? Is it the Veracity, the Swarm, or something else? Or maybe even crazier, considering that the Heavenly Principles are described as someone with crown and angel wings, and have created many rules of Teyvat, could they be a Holovian and the follower of the Order? Am I being delusional? Yes, I am. Now, in the more likely answer, even if Teyvat exists in Honkai Star Rail solar system, they could probably exist as a mirror planet, meaning everything that happened in Genshin's Teyvat could also happen in Taviet, but in a different way and is a different planet. Also, minus the Aeons and the Honkai Star Rail part, I believe that the Heavenly Principles could be fleeing from something and running to Teyvat is their final hope to survive. Perhaps what they are trying to run away is from the Abyss. I personally don't see any reason the Heavenly Principles could be coming to Teyvat in the first place other than their original home could have faced some kind of destruction in a way, but I have a rising suspicion that they are the last kin or perhaps some kind of deity. Whether in the real life or fiction, I always believe there's a reason why things need to be done, whether it's the most logical or the most unhinged way possible. Whatever they're hiding beyond the fake skies of Teyvat is definitely something that everyone in Teyvat should never see. I even suspect that what's in the sky could probably not the Moon's sister, but even the Heavenly Principles themselves. Or like what Minsleif said, it could be the Heavenly Principles' original home. Whatever it is, we will get our answer as we progress within the story of Genshin Impact, and I do believe we are one step closer to that moment when we give the Abyss the final blow in the final chapter of Natlan's Ark Conquest. One small copium, I have a feeling that Columbina might appear to aid us later in the Ark Conquest. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Yes, the final part is way too much of a nonsense, but hey, that's the joy of making videos like this, okay? If you liked this video, don't forget to give this video a like and comment so the channel can be noticed by the algorithm. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys on my next video. Tjena!